Okay, well, thank you very much. Mga kaibigan, tuloy natin ang mga news info that I want to give sa mga followers ko po dito sa Nick Talk, The Real Talk with Nico. Today, it's Easter Monday and I hope everything is running smoothly sa inyong lahat. Ang mga kababayan ko dyan sa Pilipinas, ang mga kababayan ko po dito sa Malaysia, ang mga kababayan natin dyan sa mga ibang-ibang parte sa mundo, especially itong mga overseas Filipino workers, ang mga migrant Filipinos po. And of course, ang mga kaibigan natin, mga Malaysiano dito po sa Malaysia. And mga kaibigan natin na ibang-ibang nationalities. I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Salamat pagi, salamat patang, and salamat malam to all of you and welcome to my program, Nick Talk, The Real Talk with Nico. Kahapon wala tayo po dahil with two reasons na po. Isa ay celebrating ang Easter celebration natin yesterday. And of course, I was a little bit not feeling well yesterday. Kaya nga, if you notice, even ang boses ko ngayon, medyo naiba po dahil siguro ito po sa weather condition. Narinig ko po dyan sa Pilipinas, mainit na mainit. Dito din sa Malaysia, unpredictable ang weather namin dito po. Kung minsan, morning you can feel na okay ang cool weather condition natin dito sa Malaysia, especially dito sa Kuala Lumpur. And pagdating sa hapon po, iba na naman po, mainit na mainit. And I was also made to understand dyan po sa Sabah, ganun din ang sitwasyon. Unpredictable ang weather. And today, I was made to understand dyan sa Pilipinas, ingat-ingat na kayo dahil mainit daw ang araw. It's Monday dyan sa Pilipinas. That includes also yung mga lugar sa Mindanao, particularly dyan po sa Zamboanga City po. So mag-ingat-ingat tayo po. Make sure that we bring our umbrellas kung sobra mainit po, and make sure that we drink tubig, water, so that we won't be dehydrated. Mahirap na po if magiging biktima natin sa heat stroke po, no? So, especially itong mga may sakit, ang mga senior citizens natin po, no? Ingat tayo po kung hindi naman importante ang lakad natin. We just better stay at home para safe tayo po. And kung sakali, kung sakali sobrang namain ang init sa labas po, all you have to do, no? I-patronize ninyo po yung mga shopping malls kasi mayroong mga air condition sila dyan. And lamig kayo ng kunti, and inom kayo ng whatever orders, drinks you want to order or take during your stay inside the malls po para mag-addis, hindi kayo mag-heat stroke. So okay, today I'm going to touch on itong issue natin during the time of Holy Week. Ban ang kampanya po, no? Ban ang kampanya ng mga politicians, mga kandidato natin sa midterm election. And narinig natin po, mayroon din ang mga kandidato violated itong policy or regulation ng Commission on COMELEC dyan sa Pilipinas. And I was made to understand, mayroon yata mga 100 that they identified. And COMELEC issued a show cause order to these candidates, and let's see what will be the next move. So that is one of the topic I'm going to touch. Second is I'm going to touch on the fast track talaga ang Duterte case against crimes against humanity, dyan kay Tatay Digong dyan sa International Criminal Court. And at the same time, maybe I will be showing you, kung may time pa tayo po, I will show you some, sabihin natin, background regarding ang Duterte clan or Duterte family. And also, I will be touching on itong survey ni President Bongbong Marcos, no? How significant, bakit nagiging ganyan ang trust and approval rating ni President Bongbong Marcos as early as now, no? Hindi pa siya naabot ng 3 3 years as President of the Philippines. Compared with the other previous presidents, medyo siya talaga ang pinakamababa na nakuha ng trust rating and approval rating po dyan sa Pilipinas. Anyway, sige, we will start our program by talking about itong sigaw ng mga kandidato, both the alyansa para sa masa o para sa Bagong Pilipinas at saka itong PDP laban candidates, including mga independent candidates, but particularly itong alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas at saka ang PDP laban candidates or a party po. Both of them are shouting, dapat daw kailangan straight vote. Straight vote ang mga botante, mga voters go for straight vote so that things will be okay. When we start ang second portion of the 6-year term of the President or administration, Bongbong Marcos po dyan sa Pilipinas. Alright? Now, I will share with you itong video clip wherein I managed to record where see no other than the famous pastor, no? Pastor Kibuloy, who is also aspiring to be one of the 12 vacancies as senators dyan sa Pilipinas. Because in Philippines, we have 24 senators and half of it are now vacant. And Pastor Kibuloy, who is now under the custody of the authorities dyan sa Maynila because he is facing some charges. So, he's calling ang mga supporters niya, mga supporters ng Duterte at saka the entire PDP Laban, PDP Laban partido to vote straight in the coming May 12th midterm election dyan sa Philippines. Okay, to start with, nandito po ang mensahe ni Pastor Kibuloy. Let's listen to this.
Straight PDP laban. Bakit po straight PDP laban? Para tuloy-tuloy po ang aming mga advokasya. Walang kukontra, walang kakalaban. Kami pong lahat nagkakaisa riyan. Pagkatapos, siguridad pa rin ito ng ating Vice President na pinag-initan ng mabuti. Kita ninyo, ini-impeach ang isang Vice President sa mga unfounded na mga akusasyon tulad ng intelligence funds, samantalang billion, trillion ang nilulustay ng mga nasa kapangyarihan. Wala namang mga pagtawag sa Kongreso upang ito'y imbestigahan. Ngunit hindi tinantanan ng ating Vice President upang siya ma-impeach. Pag na-impeach po kayo, perpetually hindi na kayo makapaglingkod sa bayan. Hindi na kayo pwedeng maglingkod pa. Perpetual po yan. O kaya habang buhay, hindi ka na pwedeng pumasok pa sa paglilingkod sa bayan. Yan ang gusto nilang mangyari kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Kaya pag straight vote po kami sa PDP laban, ang boto namin ay siyam. Kailangan ng siyam na boto ng mga senador upang hindi po ma-impeach ang ating Vice President Sara Duterte. Kami po yun. Kaya wala pong magmamaliw. Straight tayo. Huwag na po kayong lumingon pa sa iba. Straight tayo. Kung mahal ninyo si Vice President Sara Duterte, straight po ang ating pagboto.
Alright, yun ang mensahe ni Pastor Kibuloy po. Straight vote daw po, no? Straight vote. And sabi niya, he gave the reasons why kailangan ng straight vote dahil po mayroon pa tayong itong trial ni Vice President Inday Sara Duterte. Kung sabihin niya, sinabi ni Pastor Kibuloy na if we are going to go for straight votes, so wala tayong problema sa impeachment of Inday Sara Duterte. That will be on July 30, mag-start ang impeachment hearing ni Inday Sara Duterte. And at the same time, walang maraming hurdles or echemoreche or problema tungkol sa programa ng Duterte representatives, no? When it comes to project implementations. When it comes to project implementations, dahil po, they will have the number dyan sa Senado or maybe dyan din po sa Kongreso or dyan po sa mga local officials natin po. Be it the governor, be it the vice governor, be it dyan po sa mga probinsya and cities and municipalities po. Kaya nga, kailangan na straight votes. At the same time, ganoon din ang sigaw ng alyansa para sa bagong Pilipinas. Si Bongbong Marcos, no? Si Bongbong Marcos is also asking. In fact, during the start of the campaign period, si Presidente Bongbong Marcos, who is leading the coalition party called Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas, sabi na po, confidential, that there will be a 0-12 result of the midterm election. So ngayon po ang PDP Laban, they are campaigning for Duterte. Ibig sabihin, they have 12 or 10 official candidates po, no? Some of them are special guests po, special candidates ng PDP Laban. So 10 of them, no? 10 of them. So, and just recently, nag-endorse din si Inday Sara Duterte, although she already made it very clear earlier, even as far as last year, that she will not be endorsing any candidate during the midterm election. But of lately, now she endorsed itong si Senator Amy Marcos, no? And at the same time, same endorsement was given to Congresswoman Camille Villar. And that makes a total of 12 na po, no? 12 candidates para sa kalaban ng Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas, ang PDP Laban po, no? So 12 na sila, and medyo na menos na po ang numero ng kandidato ng Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas or ang Team Marcos po. Although there was no official announcement coming from the Marcos team regarding Villar and Imelda and Amy Marcos. But Amy Marcos, she already confirmed she's independent candidate po. Wala na siya po sa grupo ng kapatid niya, younger brother niya, si Bongbong Marcos. But si Camille, wala pa tayong official statement na coming from Congresswoman Camille, who is eyeing to be one of the 12 senators dyan po sa Pilipinas after ang midterm election on May 12th. And knowing the fact, no, everybody knows, it's given already po, ang Villar family, from the father to the mother to the son to the whole family of Villar po, very obvious po, and everybody knows that the Villar are strong supporters of the Dutertes. Kaya nga po, yun po medyo, ngayon, nagiging hot issue ito when people saw na si Senator Ruben Padilla raised the hand of Camille Villar. And at the same time na may picture si VP Sara together with Camille Villar. So, yun po ang latest developments. But, pwede ba yun? Can they go for straight votes? Either the Marcos team or the Duterte team po, no? Sa palagi ko, with the issue ngayon of, or with what is happening now, dyan po sa issue ni Tatay Digong, especially yun very memorable, event that happened last March 11, wherein the Philippine government surrendered, they use the word surrendered, Tatay Digong, dyan po sa International Criminal Court or ICC po, sa Netherlands, last March 11. nagiging very hot issue, controversial po, and nakita natin may malaking impact yan po. Malaking impact po sa team ng Marcos. Because sympathy went to the group of Dutertes. And yun na po, ngayon there is an ongoing hearing to find out whether may mga violations pa po committed by the Marcos government during the handing over of Tatay Digong's kustodiya ng ICC po. May hearing yun, and it is being spearheaded by no less than si ate, super ate ang kapatid ni Bongbong Marcos, si Amy Marcos. And gusto din mga tao malaman kung ano talaga nangyari po. Sino nakutos, and may violations pa po ang rights ni Tatay Digong. But based on the surveys, political surveys po, election poll surveys, nakikita natin po na may movement talaga, may movement talaga ang result sa mga Duterte candidates, o sa PDP Laban candidates po because of this March 11 event or incident po. So, nandyan po, you can see candidates of PDP Laban are coming in po dyan po sa Magic 12. Sa Magic 12. So, doon naman sa side ng mga Marcoses, unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, na dahil sa move yung March 11, it plays a very major or big factor po why nag-drop ang number of candidates ni Marcos din po doon sa Magic 12. And worse still, ito mga latest survey po natin, nakita natin po na ang trust rating and approval rating ni Bongbong Marcos dive talaga po to 25%, while ang trust and approval rating ni Inday Sara Duterte umakyat po despite all this impeachment trial, other allegation thrown dyan po kay Inday Sara Duterte, kay Inday Sara Duterte. Let me share you itong report muna po, mayroon tayong report dito. And this is about ano itong report, voting, ballots, ICC. Mayroon tayong report dito. Let me share with you itong report po from the mainstream media. Hold on. Okay. Medyo ano tayo kahapon, I didn't manage to do the blogging dahil po I was not feeling well. Itong Marcos rating po, I just want to share with you itong report ng Marcos rating and whether kaya ba nila po yun 0-12, 12-0 po sa midterm election. Nandito po, let's listen to this.
The approval and trust ratings of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. tumbled by 17 percentage points within just a month between the latest Pulse Asia surveys, with his disapproval and distrust ratings jumping more than 20 percentage points. More than half of those polled neither trust nor approve of the president's work.
His trust and approval ratings are less than majority, but his distrust and disapproval ratings are at the majority. He has to regain the trust and approval of majority of the public.
Marcos Jr. ally, Senate President Francis Escudero's ratings are also down by about 10 percentage points, with more people undecided on whether to trust or approve of his work than those who feel either way. Meanwhile, the president's cousin, House Speaker Martin Romualdez, saw his disapproval and distrust ratings jumping into double digits. His already low trust and approval ratings were almost unchanged. The same survey showed that the government was perceived to have performed poorly in the issues that mattered the most to respondents, such as inflation, wages, poverty, graft and corruption, and criminality. Pulse Asia President Ronald Holmes sees a link between this and the government's ratings.
The message has been clear from mid last year when we saw the highest disapproval with regard to controlling inflation, there has to be attention given with regard to employment, high prices, commodities, difficult for government to address it. But again, they will be held accountable for this one. They has to start really addressing those major concerns. No? The inflation issue has been there, fighting criminality and fighting graft and corruption becoming one of the top 5 concerns. The administration has failed to address these concerns.
And since she's no longer in the cabinet, Vice President Sara Duterte's own ratings seem to have recovered despite her pending impeachment trial. The polls showed Duterte to be the only one among the top 4 officials to score majority approval and trust ratings, while her disapproval and distrust ratings are down by double digits.
She has dissociated herself. She doesn't hold a cabinet portfolio right now. Her approval and trust is largely based on whatever she has done independent of the administration. That distancing from the administration probably shielded her from the disapproval and distrust of the key personalities, more especially the president.
Holmes, however, notes that the impeachment trial may change their perceptions of the VP, which in turn may influence the votes of the senators in judging the impeachment.
Definitely, these numbers are numbers that she should be able to work with, but we don't know whether she can sustain it. There are developments that will come along the way in the next 3 years. At this point, however, with the impeachment still pending, and depending on the evidences that are presented in that impeachment, I think those evidences will eventually impact on public opinion and may sway this impeachment court's decision on whether to acquit or convict her. It will depend largely on the way that the impeachment trial is conducted and the weight of the evidence that is presented against the Vice President. If those evidences are really weighty to begin with and things that cannot in any way be dismissed easily, then that will really sway public opinion in favor of, let's say, a conviction. But if the evidence is something that is weak, they would not be able not only to convince the members of the impeachment court, but also the public.
For Holmes, the survey is also a warning sign for the administration amid Duterte's rising numbers. RG Cruci.
Alright, yan po ang report regarding itong survey ng presidente, ng vice president, ni Chis Escudero, ni Martin Romualdez po. Kaya ba yan po? With this kind of rating, kaya ba sila po to convince the people, mga voters to go for 12-0 or vote for straight? So that is something that I really doubt. For me, to be frank with you, medyo mahirapan talaga ang Marcos candidates ngayon. Yung dream nila to have a 12-0 results midterm election. Now, talking about ang mga violations during the Holy Week, no? During the Holy Week, if I'm not mistaken, Thursday and Friday, they are not supposed to do sorties or campaign sorties po. Yan po ang polisiya ng COMELEC. But there are those who still carried out campaigning during these 2 days po. And mostly are online. Yet it is a violation. It is a violation. Let's listen to COMELEC Chairman George Garcia when interviewed by Ted Filon this morning. Let's listen to this.
Ang DJ, lahat po yan ay na-issuean na yung pagkaksataan ng tinatawag na show cause orders. Hinihintay na po natin yung paliwanag nila. Tinaasahan natin ngayong araw na to hanggang bukas ay matatanggap natin yung mga show cause orders. At alam niyo naman natin, yan ay preliminary lang yung show cause order. Pagkatapos yan, i-assess namin kung dapat na silang filean ng kaso kriminal at disqualifikasyon. Kung natatandaan natin, bago po nagpakasyunan, noong nakaraang Miyerkules ay nag-file po ang amin pong task force safe ng kasong disqualifikasyon laban po doon sa kandidato sa Pasig makatapos yung tinatawag na show cause order. So ganyan po yung gagawin din natin dito sa ating pong mga vote buying cases. Yung iba naman, Ma'am DJ, Sir Ted, may mga pending na nakaso na nandito sa COMELEC na kapapay lang ng mga kalaban o yung mga ordinary mga citizen natin doon sa mga lugar. Yung pong sinasabi natin sa Quezon City, more or less ang pinamimigay ay USSC visa. Yung pala, ang ibig sabihin niya, yung pala yung pang cashless na pwedeng, yun ang ginagamit para ipambayad doon sa mga stores na accredited nila, halimbawa. So yan po ay bagong-bago lamang at lumalabas, nakita natin itong pamimigay na ito nitong nakaraang bakasyunan. So therefore, maaaring violation na ito ng ating bawal mangampanya ng Huwebes Santo at Biyernes Santo at the same time, kung sakasakali vote buying pa, sapagkat pinagbabawal din po natin ang pag-i-issue ng mga membership cards na yan after ng March 28.
Alright, yun po, klaro po, may mga violations po and ang COMELEC already issued Joco's letter to the concerned parties and sabi ni George Garcia, they're expecting today and Monday or Tuesday, bukas, they will be receiving mga reply ng Joco's order. I'm sorry, medyo ano tayo dahil sa weather condition dito sa Malaysia. Okay, let's continue with some video clips also regarding si COMELEC Chairman George Garcia, and this time he's talking about yung mga machines, mga ballots, no? Ballot materials now they will be sending sa mga diferente lugares dyan po sa Pilipinas. They will send the ballots, already official ballots po, to the various cities, municipalities, and provinces po, provinces. Nandito po ang statement or answer ni George Garcia during the program of Ted Filon. Hold on, I will show you. I will share with you itong video clip. Hold on. And ang cue natin is 2:15. Okay? Nandito po, let's listen to George Garcia, 2:15.
Nabigay na rin po namin, na-distribute na namin yung lahat ng mga makina na gagamitin po para sa ating pong, para naman po sa ating eleksyon. Nasa mga hub na po natin yan. Dahan-dahan na po natin yan na naka-preposition. Mamayang gabi po, magsisimula na kami para sa pag-ship ng ating pong mga balota. Dadali naman sa mga opisina ng Treasurer, City at Munisipyo base po sa ating batas. Hopefully, matapos po yung distribution natin ng mga balota bago matapos ang buwan ng Abril. At siyempre, magkakaroon po tayo sa May 3 to May 10 ng tinatawag na final testing and sealing sa lahat ng 94,000 precincts sa buong Pilipinas, na kung saan ang lahat ng mga guro na maglilingkod sa araw ng eleksyon ay magpapaboto sa 10 botante na tunay ng mga botante. At the same time, susubukan yung mga makina, aalamin na andyan yung mga watchers kung gumagana ng maayos, kung may mga laman na ba, may mga ganyan. And therefore, napaka-importante na dapat alam ng lahat na magkakaroon ng ganyang klaseng pagtetest, pagsusubok upang naandun sila saksiyan yung final testing and sealing na yan.
Opo, bago po mag-Semana Santa, Gemma, meron po nabalita na may nag-uwi ng election paraphernalia sa bahay ho ng hindi ito inilagay sa official COMELEC space, kundi inuwi sa bahay. Ito ba'y nakakaabot sa inyo?
Ay, opo, Sir Ted, yan po ay mga solar panels at saka Starlink. Sapagkat yung kontrata po namin, Sir Ted, basta importante sa amin, hindi naman po kinakailangan ilagay yan sa mga hub na tinatawag. Ang mga nakalagay po sa hub, ballot boxes, yung mismo machines, yung mismo mga baterya. Pero dito po basta ang sa amin, kinakailangan bago magsimula ang April 15 po ang sinabi namin na dapat maikabit na yan sa mga paaralan para po nakahanda. In fact po, Sir Ted, may danger po na maikabit ng maaga sa mga paaralan, kahit sa bubong ng paaralan yung mga styling po kasi yan, Sir Ted baka po kasi manakaw. Pero nag-chance na po kami kasi mas maganda maaga na naka-preposition. Wala po yung effect whatsoever sa mga sa result, sapagkat yan po, kumbaga sa TV, antena lang po yan ang television natin.
Okay, sir.
Alright, klaro po. Yun po ang statement, ang explanation ni COMELEC Chairman George Garcia. He was also asked isang question na po about itong mga political surveys po, no? Ang commission and non-commission political survey or election survey po carried out by some firms, some groups, no? And they're showing different kinds of, sabihin natin, election results, election results sa mga kandidato. And nandito po ang pahayag, ang statement ni George Garcia tungkol sa issue na ito po. Let's listen to George Garcia.
Hindi po natin pinagbawal OFW, Sir Ted, sa ating pong patakaran, sinabi natin, kinakailang magsabit sila sa amin. In fairness naman po, nagsasabit na yung po mga una-una na naglabas ng survey ay nagsasabit po sa amin ng report base po sa ating kalatas na nailabas, Sir Ted. And therefore, kahit paano po compliant, pati po yung requirement natin kung sino ang nagkomisyon, sino ang nagbayad, na kung mapapansin nyo po, kung makakakuha kayo ng mismong kompletong survey, nilalagay po na nila yan. Ang pinoproblema lang talaga ngayon ng mga survey organizations, Sir Ted, meron pong gumagamit ng kanilang logo. And therefore, yung mga logo yun, pinapalabas na survey nila, lalo sa mga probinsya, na hindi naman po talaga nila pala survey yon. Ang tanong kung kanino bang jurisdiction yun, kung hindi po kasi sa amin yun, yung mismong paggamit ng kanilang mga logo, sabi nga namin, ma-report sa atin upang yung mismong law enforcement agencies ang ating ma-call yung attention. So again, sa mga kababayan natin, may posibilidad na dyan sa inyong mga lugar, yung mga pinapalabas na survey ay hindi po talaga surveys ng mga kilala na survey organizations.
Okay, yun po ang statement ni George Garcia tungkol sa survey. Survey lang yun po eh. Kung wala ang pangalan ng kandidato ninyo po, it doesn't mean na wala siya ng hope. He cannot win anymore. Survey lang yun po. And ang real survey will be on May 12. Kung mababa or mahina ang placing ng kandidato ninyo po, no? Siguro that survey will just remind these candidates o mga supporter ng kandidato to do more or change their campaign strategies. While those nakapasok na talaga sa survey, so don't be overconfident po. You have to still do your job and show to the voters that you deserve their support. Po. Alright? So, this time around, I will be sharing with you. Let's change our topic dito na po sa ICC or International Criminal Court na tungkol kay former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte or si Tatay Digong. Anong latest developments natin po? Dito, I'm going to share with you itong video clip tungkol sa latest developments dyan sa ICC. Dyan sa ICC. Hold on. Nandito po. Let's listen.
Ipinasura ng International Criminal Court at Pre-Trial Chamber ang hiling ng kampo ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte na higpitan ang verification process sa mga biktima kaugnay ng investigasyon sa sinasabing patayan sa war on drugs. Inaprubahan ng ICC Pre-Trial Chamber ang panukalang listahan ng mga dokumentong maaaring magamit para kumpirmahin ang pagkakakilanlan ng mga lalahok sa pagdinig sa kasong crimes against humanity laban sa dating Pangulo. Pero kinatigan ng ICC Pre-Trial Chamber ang rekomendasyon ng kampo ni dating Pangulong Duterte na desisyonan kung kikilalanin bilang biktima ang mga aplikanteng may hawak na witness declaration o hindi aprobadong dokumento. Binigyan naman ng prosekusyon hanggang sa July 1 para ilahad ang mga ebidensyang ihaharap sa paglilitis. Inatasan din ang prosekusyon na isumite ang pangalan ng mga testigong ihaharap sa pagdinig, gayon din ang kanilang mga testimonya. Nauna nang inihanda ng prosekusyon ang 2 testigo, 16 na oras na audio-video files at halos 9,000 pahina ng dokumento bilang ebidensya sa confirmation of charges laban sa dating Pangulo sa September 23.
Alright, yun po ang latest tungkol sa ICC po. And this time around, narinig natin po, no? Since March 11 hanggang ngayon po, maingay pa rin ang sabihin natin ang storya ni Tatay Digong po. Both dito sa Pilipinas, local and international. I would like to share with you itong video po, no? Video clip that I recorded. Medyo kunting mahaba ito po. I think it's around 8 minutes plus or let's say 9 minutes po. And it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile listening, watching to this video. Para this, you will have a clear idea po tungkol itong ICC case po ni Tatay Digong. Medyo ano tayo, ano ito? Pause dahil I'm not feeling well. Even now, I'm not feeling well. But since I saw this kind of stories, so sabi ko, siguro I'll better force myself and be with you in this program and share with you this kind of news na I think is worthwhile po. No? Alright, sandali. I will share with you this video clip. Nasaan na yun? Aha, nandito po. Let's listen to this. It's worthwhile listening to this report.
Controversial arrest of former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has generated significant debate and raised opposing discussions within both local and international communities. Each individual holds a distinct interpretation and perspective regarding the former president's contentious arrest and subsequent transfer to the International Criminal Court detention facility in The Hague, Netherlands. What is the International Criminal Court or ICC, and what types of trials are conducted within its jurisdiction?
International law is not as weak as some may think.
The International Criminal Court or ICC investigates and tries individuals charged with the gravest crimes of concern to the international communities. Its headquarters is located in The Hague in the Netherlands. The court aims to help in a global fight against impunity and to hold those responsible accountable for the crimes they've committed. Being a court of last resort, the ICC seeks to complement and not to replace national criminal systems in the countries under its jurisdiction. To date, ICC has 125 state parties from Africa, Asia Pacific, Eastern and Western Europe, Latin America, Caribbean, and other states that are accredited to the Rome Statute. Notably, 3 of the world's most powerful nations, the United States, China, and Russia, are not members of this organization. Under the court's founding treaty, the Rome Statute, the ICC can have jurisdiction over 4 main crimes. The crime of genocide, characterized by the specific intent to destroy a certain nationality, ethnic, racial, or religious group. As of the time of writing, there are 7 individuals charged with genocide at the ICC, 3 of whom have been acquitted. Individuals convicted of genocide by the ICC can face up to 30 years of imprisonment. The court may also impose fines paid to the victims or their families. The ICC also prosecutes crimes against humanity committed as part of a large-scale attack against any civilian population. There are 15 forms of crimes under this, listed in the Rome Statute, such as murder, rape, torture, and enforced disappearances, among others. The former president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, was arrested and turned over to the ICC based on the violation of Article 7 of the Rome Statute.
We must understand po na this is different from the ordinary murder that we understand under our criminal law sa domestic law po natin. Sa domestic law po, it's simply the killing of a person under, with certain qualifying circumstance. For example, could be treachery, premeditation, so that will become murder. Ang murder naman po, as a crime against humanity, iba naman po yun. It's a different level of murder because may contextual element po na requirement yun. It's not, aside from the act of killing lang, yung contextual element po is that it must be committed as part of a widespread and systematic attack against a civilian population.
Jam tangan mo po niya i-recommendo iyang uning. Kali jam diperbuat daripada kain canvas, ringan dan slip.
Upon conviction, the former president may spend the remainder of his life in the detention facility of the International Criminal Court.
Kung mati-dismiss po yung kaso, of course, that will result to an acquittal. So, pwede po siya makauwi. So, pero kung convicted naman po siya, so yung sentence po under the Rome statute is a maximum of 30 years. Pero yung maximum na po yun, depende rin po yan sa evaluation and assessment of the court.
The third type of crime that the ICC caters to is war crimes, which are serious violations of international humanitarian law committed during armed conflicts, as defined in Article 8 of the Rome Statute. Those guilty of war crimes can face imprisonment for up to 30 years. Under Article 8 of the Rome Statute, the ICC possesses jurisdiction over crimes of aggression. This term refers to the employment of armed force by one state against the sovereignty, territorial integrity, or independence of another state. The jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court over a specific case commences with a preliminary examination conducted by the Office of the Prosecutor. During this phase, the prosecutor will assess whether there is sufficient evidence and gravity that falls within the parameters of the court's jurisdiction. In the ICC case of the former Philippine president, the prosecutor found reasonable grounds to continue with the investigation.
The judges have found reasonable grounds to believe that Mr. Duterte has committed the crime of murder.
Although the court's jurisdiction over his case is being questioned, an international law expert believes that the arrest is valid.
There was a time that the Philippines was a party to the International Criminal Court. So we were a member, we are a state party to the Rome Statute. So nung time po na state party tayo sa Rome Statute and before our withdrawal from the Rome Statute in 2019, nagka-jurisdiction po yung International Criminal Court over crimes that were allegedly committed during that period of time. So once na-acquire na po yung jurisdiction over the subject matter of those crimes, so that jurisdiction will continue.
Once custody of the accused is established, the case proceeds to the pre-trial stage, which includes the initial appearance of the person charged with a crime and the confirmation of charges hearings. Should the case advance to trial, it is incumbent upon the prosecution to establish the guilt of the accused beyond a reasonable doubt.
So that's the challenge that on the part of the prosecution. They need to establish na yung war on drugs was committed as part of a widespread and systematic attack against a civilian population. So yung burden of proof po nun nasa prosecution.
Following the issuance of the verdict, both the prosecutor and the defense possess the right to appeal the trial chamber's decision regarding the verdict. If the conviction becomes final, the convicted person who has been sentenced to imprisonment will serve the sentence in the country volunteered to enforce ICC sentences. Based on the outcomes of previous trials conducted by the International Criminal Court or ICC, the entire legal process may last between 2 to 8 years. Despite its status as an international court, the International Criminal Court's complementarity principle renders it reliant on the cooperation of state parties. The ICC relies on states' cooperation in many fields, such as allowing investigation missions and facilitating the protection of the witnesses and the contact of the victims. The court also does not have a police force or army. It does not arrest the suspect itself. It relies on the states to do so. Sometimes the arrest warrants are pending for so many years, but they are valid for life, unless the judges decided otherwise.
Okay, that's it. Adisa, now you have a better idea or a picture ano talaga itong ICC po, no? Itong ICC po, who is now looking yung case ni Tatay Digong dyan po sa Netherlands. And mayroon din mga haka-haka, mayroon din mga news revolving or being spread not only in the Philippines but also outside the Philippines po. na ang ICC is fast-tracking ang case ni Tatay Digong. As what we know, based on what I have shown to you, na it doesn't mean that the trial is there. It doesn't mean that he's already guilty. In the event he found not guilty po, then he will be a free man. No? But ang problema lang po, ang trial is a long trial po, no? Between 2 to 8 years ito po, no? 2 to 8 years, depende yan po. So, ano mga ebidensya mayroon sila against Tatay Digong, because the burden of proof lies on the prosecutors po, hindi doon kay Tatay Digong. So, let's see, and we will continue to monitor ang situation or ang updates tungkol dyan po sa case ni Tatay Digong dyan sa International Criminal Court or ICC. Nandito po, I'll show you another video na fast-tracking. ICC is fast-tracking the Duterte case. Nandito, let's listen to this. Let's listen to this, huh? Hold on.
The International Criminal Court has taken a decisive step forward in the case against former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte. A sweeping procedural order has been issued, narrowing the scope of evidence, tightening deadlines, and ensuring that the road to trial remains clear. This is not just legal housekeeping, it's a clear signal. The ICC is moving full speed ahead. Duterte is facing multiple charges of crimes against humanity tied to his deadly war on drugs from 2016 to 2022. Thousands of people were killed during police operations and vigilante-style killings, a campaign Duterte publicly championed. He was arrested in Manila on March 11th under an ICC warrant issued just 4 days earlier and flown to The Hague the same day. In its 17-page decision dated April 17, the pre-trial chamber emphasized a key principle: efficiency. The court wants to avoid what it called a mini-trial at the pre-trial stage, keeping the proceedings focused, timely, and fair to all parties involved. At the center of this effort is a tightly controlled evidence disclosure regime. Prosecutors must submit only materials that are directly relevant to the charges, grouped thematically, and categorized as incriminating, exonerating, or essential for the defense. Each piece must include an explanation of why it matters. The deadline for submission, July 1st. And by July 4th, the prosecution must file a 30-page document containing the charges, alongside a 90-page pre-confirmation brief. Challenges from the defense are due July 16th, and the prosecution has until August 20th to amend or supplement its case. The defense must file its evidence by September 5th. Both sides must submit final written arguments no later than 10 days before the September 23rd hearing, a critical session that will determine if the case moves to full trial. Live testimony will be extremely limited. The prosecution can call no more than 2 witnesses and only with the chamber's approval. To save time, both parties are urged to agree on any uncontested facts by September 1st. Victims will be allowed to participate, but in a phased and structured way. Applications will be grouped and processed by the ICC registry, with deadlines set for August 20th and August 27th. Until a common legal representative is appointed, the Office of Public Counsel for Victims will provide interim representation. The court is still balancing transparency with security. Prosecutors have requested extra time to disclose materials related to protected witnesses, citing ongoing safety assessments. Non-sensitive materials will be shared on time, while others will undergo redaction in line with Article 68(1) of the Rome Statute. The scale of the prosecution's case is massive. Over 1,77,000 items of evidence have been collected, including 1,29,000 already digitized. Photos, policy papers, and 15 hours of video, all allegedly pointing to a state-directed campaign of violence. English has been confirmed as the official language for proceedings. The prosecution is pushing for formal adoption of both a redaction protocol and an e-code protocol to better handle confidential
yan po. I'm sorry. Okay, yan po. That's the latest developments meron tayo tungkol sa kaso ni Tatay Digong dyan po sa Netherlands. Dyan po sa Netherlands. So, let's see. Everybody is looking forward to see ang September 23rd. Confirmation of charges, no? September 23rd ito, no? How many? 4-5 months from now. And let's see, anything can still happen between now and September 23rd. Meron, they already made some schedules on the activities leading to September 23rd. And don't worry, once I get the confirmations or whatever video clips I can get on, 100% I'll make sure that you will be immediately or properly informed on the updates regarding ang case ni Tatay Digong dyan sa ICC. But sino ba talaga itong si Tatay Digong? For those who still wondering kung sino talaga si Tatay Digong, because not everybody knows si Tatay Digong po, ang pamilya ni Tatay Digong. Especially mga foreigners, no? But only now they heard about Tatay Digong after how many years break, no? From being the president and then stepped down as the president. Tapos na ang term niya and then, popular pa rin siya sa Pilipinas but sa mga ibang parte sa mundo, medyo nawala na ang news and only now it came back after ang arrest ni Tatay Digong. Sino ba si Tatay Digong? Ano ba? Malaki ba itong pamilya ni Tatay Digong? Sino-sino ba ang mga anak ni Tatay Digong? So, for those who wants to know, meron tayo na itong konting video clip regarding ang pamilya ni Tatay Digong, mga anak niya, mga apo niya. But I won't be able to give you ang mga names ng apo niya po, no? So, let's see. And I want to share with you this video clip that I have or I have prepared para sa inyong lahat po when it comes to itong si Tatay Digong. Let's listen to this. Let's listen to this.
Pinoon ni Rodrigo Duterte na malayo ngayon sa kanya, ngunit patuloy na nakasuporta sa gitna ng pagsubok na kanyang hinaharap habang siya ay nasa Hague, the Netherlands. Kilalanin natin ang kanyang mga anak at mga apo na may dugong Duterte. The Philippine Showbiz List presents mga anak at apo ni Rodrigo Duterte. Paulo Pulong Duterte. Si Paulo ang pangalan na anak ni Rodrigo sa dating asawang si Elizabeth Zimmerman. Para sa kanyang elementary at secondary studies, siya ay nag-aral sa Philippine Women's College of Davao. Nag-aral naman si Paulo sa University of Mindanao, kung saan nakuha niya kanyang bachelor's degree sa Banking and Finance noong 2002. Nagpatuloy din siya ng graduate studies sa University of Southeastern Philippines, kung saan nakuha niya ang kanyang master's degree sa Public Administration noong 2009 at sa Lyceum Northwestern University, kung saan nakuha niya ang kanyang doctorate degree sa Public Administration noong 2015. Tulad ng kanyang ama, pinasok ni Paulo ang politika. Nagsimula siya bilang kapitan ng Barangay Catalunan Grande sa Davao City noong 2007 hanggang 2013. Mula July 2011 hanggang June 2013, naging vice presidente siya ng Mindanao Liga ng mga Barangay National. Naging sektor na kinatawan ng Association of Barangay Captains sa 15th at 16th Davao City Council mula 2008 hanggang 2013. Naging vice mayor siya ng Davao City mula 2013 hanggang magbitiw siya noong December 2017 at sinabi niya ang pagbibitiw ay dulot ng delikadesa. Si Paulo ay naging House Deputy Speaker ng 18th Congress at kasalukuyang nagsisilbing kinatawan ng 1st District ng Davao City simula 2019. Inday Sara Duterte. Kilala bilang Inday Sara, siya ang pangalawang anak ni Rodrigo at Elizabeth. Nag-aral si Sara sa San Pedro College sa Davao City, majoring in BS Respiratory Therapy. Naroon na sinabi ni Sara na simula pa lang ay nais niyang maging pediatrician imbis na maging politiko. Ngunit sinundan niya ang yapak ng ama bilang isang abogado, kaya kumuha siya ng law degree sa San Sebastian College Recoletos, kung saan nakapagtapos siya noong 2005. Nang taon ding yun, ay nakapasa siya sa Philippine Bar Examination. Matapos nito ay ilang buwan din siya nagtrabaho bilang court attorney. Maliban dito ay isa ring reserve officer si Sara ng Armed Forces of the Philippines na may ranggong colonel. Noong 2007, nahalal siya bilang Vice Mayor ng Davao City at nagsilbi namang mayor mula 2010 hanggang 2013. Matapos ang isang termino bilang Local Chief Executive, nag-focus si Sara sa kanyang pribadong pagsasanay bilang abogado at muli nagsilbing mayor mula 2016 hanggang 2022. Sa kasalukuyan siya naglilingkod bilang ika-15 Vice Presidente ng Pilipinas at ang pinakabatang nahalal sa posisyong ito. Kasabay na kanyang tungkulin bilang Vice Presidente, nagsilbi rin si Sara bilang kalihim ng Department of Education at sa ilalim ng kanyang pamumuno, inilunsad ang matatag agenda. Sebastian Baste Duterte. Kilala noon sa bansang The Rebel Son, si Baste ang bunso ni Rodrigo at Elizabeth. Ang kanyang pangalan ay minsang pinag-usapan sa showbiz na sa naging relasyon nila noon ni Ellen Adarna. Si Baste ay isang masugid na surfer at madalas mag-post ng mga larawan sa social media ng kanyang mga surfing adventures. Noong 2017, inilunsad niya ang sarili niyang reality travel show na Lakbay. Bagamat nauna nang sinabi noon ni Baste na hanggat maaari ay nais niyang iwasan ang politika at hindi ito ang kanyang natural na hilig dahil sa magulong kalakaran nito at sanay na siya sa buhay ng pamilya niyang matagal nang nasa larangang ito. Bukas pa din siya sa posibilidad na suungin ito. Nakuha ni Baste ang kanyang high school diploma sa San Beda College sa Manila. Nag-aral siya ng legal management sa parehong kolehiyo sa loob ng 1 taon bago bumalik sa Davao, kung saan nag-aral siya ng political science sa Ateneo de Davao University. Inalok siya ng kanyang ama ng tamakbo bilang konsihal ng Davao City noong 2013 at bilang kinatawan noong 2016, ngunit tinanggihan niya ito. Hanggang sa noong 2019, tumakbo si Baste bilang Vice Mayor ng Davao City nang walang kalaban at kasalukuyang nanunungkulan bilang Mayor ng lungsod mula 2022.
Alright, yun po, no? And wala pa tayo yun, anak ni Tatay Digon, si Veronica, si Kitty. Maybe I will share with you ang ano ni Kitty at saka mga apo next episode natin. So, yun po, that's what the info or ang mga topics natin for today po. It's a Monday. Maganda po. Now we are rejoicing because Jesus Christ has risen from the death. And enjoy na tayo po. Tapos na ang fasting month natin. And I wish everything will run smoothly sa atin po. No? And thank you very much for those who made made our Holy Week or our Lenten season sabihin natin solemn. Thank you very much po for your kind consideration and for your help. So siguro hanggang dito na lang po ang programa natin na Nick Tonteria Talk with Nico. Ito po si Nico Fabian. Once again, would like to say thank you very much for making me a part of your day today. Malaysia, Sabah, the Philippines, God bless us all. And I see you tomorrow. Bye.